Okay, well, thank you guys for doing some introductions in chat. We might have a few other people come in and we'll record this for anyone else who wasn't able to attend this morning. So what we're going to do is just short our time, and if we don't use the full hour, you get those minutes back. But really what we wanted to do is share with you the new Health and Wellness Seed Grant opportunity. So today we're really talking about the smaller grant awards that are for programs or organizations emerging and up to $5,000. Many of them might apply with a fiscal sponsor organization. So we're going to go over what that funding opportunity is, the background, the eligibility, and key dates. We'll take time after that section to then do some questions and answers from you all, and then we're going to do a little walkthrough with Nanda, who's on the call, of the grants portal from Hawaiʻi Community Foundation and some of the steps to take in order to apply. And then at the very end, question and answer about anything related to the seed grant opportunity that you heard. So before we do that, we're on the call. I see we've got 3 participants, and then the other good half of us here are actually staff at Hawaiʻi Community Foundation. I just wanted to introduce you to who is here. You see them all in the virtual room. I'm Justina Acevedo Cross. I'm the team lead of the health and wellness sector. And I'm joined by this awesome team that you see here. We have Trisha Marvellos, who's a program officer with us, as well as Malia Mayer, who's also a program officer. And then we also on the team, we have Jarissa Lum, who's a program associate, and you probably recognize her name because you get a lot of the emails coordinating these virtual information sessions from Jarissa. She's also our first point of contact for this grant opportunity. If you have any particular questions, you want to reach out, Jarissa helps to collect those and make sure they get to the right person on the team. And then also Nanda Friedman, who's a senior program associate with our team and is helping with the health and wellness grant opportunity. Okay, so I wanted to just give a little bit of background about how this grant opportunity came to be. So it is situated, and it actually comes out of a change framework that we've been working to adopt and implement as part of Hawaiʻi Community Foundation over the last 4 years. And change really is these 6 sectors in Hawaii that we believe are needed in order for people and place to thrive. The undergirding of that work and change is actually about shared leadership, shared goals, and using data in order to inform things that can make a lot of impact in Hawaii. And this work is situated in that letter that's under H. It stands for health and wellness. Although we really recognize that there's intersections across all of our work. A good example of that is, take, for example, natural environment. A lot of the things that have come up through health have also been around sort of AINA stewardship and that relationship to health and wellness in Hawaii. So if you can go to the next slide. Thanks for following along with me. So just as background for this grants program, as part of that process, we've actually spent the last year meeting and learning and getting a lot of input about what are people's highest hopes and dreams for the health and wellness sector in Hawaii. We've done different kinds of gatherings and ways of understanding what is currently going on, and then also what are the future hopes and visions. In that time, we've met with 189 people in different ways. They've given us feedback, they've come to meetings, they've joined us virtually. And we're really proud of the ways that people have also chosen to be generous with their time, because sometimes it's meant that they've both come to a meeting and heard what we've the synthesis of what we've heard, but then also offered to say review what the vision statement drafts looked like during that time. And those activities really fell into 3 buckets: community listening, taking stock of data that was already existing in the sector, and then sourcing participation in creative ways. So just a couple examples. Through community listening, met across Hawaiʻi Island and Maui. We had several in-person meetings to really listen to what people what's on their mind about what's working well in the health and wellness field, what could kind of be better and more supportive of the work in the sector. And then also we were starting to have some early drafts of what became the health and wellness vision statement. So we were able to share some very early drafts, get feedback, and then iterate. Then we went back out to community and got input. We also did kind of a scan of data. In our sector in Hawaii, we have a very rich set of data that is available. And I think our next kind of tranche of work is figuring out, and what does it look like to actually measure community level health at indicators that might not just be at the individual level. So stay tuned on that. We can share more about some of those opportunities. And so in this, we did really work on like vetting and revising what was this ultimate idea of creating a vision statement for the sector. So this is not Hawaii Community Foundation's vision statement, but this was across all those who participated and their organizations to say, like, what should health and wellness look like in 10 years in Hawaii? And so this is where we landed with the vision statement. Let me go ahead and read it, because I actually think it's important enough to kind of spend time, slow down, and kind of hear what's in the vision statement, because this has guided the development of the funding opportunity. So in 10 years, health and wellness has shifted from fixing the individual to supporting changes identified and led by communities across Hawaii. These shifts will impact the overall ecosystem of health in places where people live, connect, work, and play. Shifting agency, resources, and decision-making to community members closest to the solutions creates a resilient, equitable, and secure Hawaii. So you can hear in that vision statement, the big shift is like the focus towards the community and emphasizing community-led solutions for health and wellness. And that plays out very much as if you've had a chance to read the funding opportunity that we'll be talking about. And one other point I wanted to say about our vision statement is underneath that is actually a social ecological model of the different layers that we need to achieve this vision. So in public health, the social ecological model would include things like the interpersonal level, so relationships between two or more people, and then the community level and societal level. So if you want more information about that, I highly encourage you to look at the resources we have on the funding opportunity page for the health and wellness grants. A couple things that you'll see there, you'll actually see a deck called the Summary Findings Deck of all this that I've sort of been sharing with you over the last month. It's a very good resource for this, this particular funding opportunity. Okay, and a couple things from that deck that I wanted to lift up into this conversation. If you can go to the next slide. Through conversations with community members, really over and over, we heard many themes, and those are the ones I'm lifting up are on the next two slides. So these are promising approaches that were identified by community. So basically the ideas for the how, like how could these projects and programs, how can we get towards that 10-year vision? And then this actually guided what we put into that funding opportunity that was just released last week. So things like resourcing collaborative projects, really focusing on projects that have been community designed with community input. And then a real request for the Hawaii Community Foundation to be able to provide flexible funding through transparent and trust-based philanthropy. So being more clear about what funding is available. And those are some of the things that you'll see in the funding opportunity that we put out. So I won't go through all of these, but I did want to share these themes you'll find in that summary deck if you want to refer to them in the future. And these are ones that are were constantly and over kind of what we heard in community, so much so that we can really summarize them into these approaches. And then if you go to the next slide, all that input since last year, the other piece to it besides the vision statement was really trying to see if there was themes of potential, what we're calling promising strategies. So ones that people think have the highest potential to really make an impact in the health and wellness sector, us getting to a better sense of health and wellness over the next 10 years. And these are ones that we will be prioritizing for funding through this grant program. And there's 5 of them. Again, you can find this material, it's both outlined in the funding opportunity document and then also summarized again in the findings deck that I mentioned. So 1, providing better data and information. That was a theme that really came out as a promising strategy. This might look like ways of looking at different subgroups and really understanding what data we can understand and glean for specific subpopulations. 2 was growing the health and wellness workforce. There was a real acknowledgement that we have a shortage of our health and wellness workforce, and what are maybe some innovative strategies that help us either grow our own workforce or have this growing supply of workforce across not just healthcare, but our wellness sectors too. And then 3, addressing mental and behavioral health. This was a real strong emphasis at every community conversation that we had. I think I was mentioning to colleagues that, it was just so fascinating that even if no one that kind of quote unquote worked in mental health came to our meetings, this always came up as an important topic that was needing to be addressed. Number 4, increasing the holistic and community-based health and wellness options. So again, this idea of like really community-driven, community-led definitions of health and what that can look like. And 5 is related to that. So involving communities in decision-making about how we improve health and wellness in Hawaii. So those I just wanted to give you as kind of the why behind this funding opportunity that we just were able to release last week. And now we'll get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of what does it look like, eligibility, and all those good details. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Trisha, who's going to walk us through some of those details.
Thanks, Justina. So this is a separate opportunity from the collaboration grants. So for the seed grant eligibility, the maximum award amount is going to be $5,000, and we hope to award between about 6 to 10 organizations. So in order to apply, the applicant must be a nonprofit organization with a 501c3 status and must provide services in Hawaii, or they can be a sponsored organization, which means if they have a fiscal sponsor. If you have any past due final reports, you will not be eligible to apply. So get those in if you have any. And so really, if you are thinking about applying for this opportunity, you must meet 2 or more of these requirements. So the first one is that the organization or sponsored organization has not received funding from HCF before. I think we have a question about this after. We can kind of clarify that. The applicant organization or sponsored organization has 2 or fewer paid full-time equivalent staff. So if you have 3 people on staff, but they're all like half-time, then you're good. We're okay. And then also the applicant organization has received its nonprofit status less than 10 years ago. So we're really looking to try and fund some newer organizations that maybe need some help establishing their programming. So also we would like the organization programs to align with our vision statement and implement 1 or more of the strategies that Justina just talked about. So if you remember, it's like data, health and wellness, workforce, mental health. So addressing 1 of those. The organization will also gather data that helps us to just see how you're making progress towards your goals in the health and wellness sector. We would also like to see that the organization uses their data to improve its programs and collaborative efforts. At HCF, we are committed to advancing equity, so we will support organizations that are focused on addressing the greatest disparities within our community, and also that the organization collaborates with others to better fulfill their mission, or leads or participates in a network with partners to foster systems change. So basically working together with a bunch of different organizations that really have a goal in mind to foster some systems change. So if you are going to have a fiscal sponsor, these are some of our requirements. And I think further along in the presentation, Nanda will talk a little bit more about kind of more of the technical details of having a fiscal sponsor. But there's a form that the fiscal sponsor will need to fill out. The fiscal sponsor also needs to be a nonprofit with a 501c3 status. And basically just, the certification and submission of the fiscal sponsor organization profile in the grants portal needs to be completed. So you just have to kind of, make sure that your sponsor is, on top of their Smart Simple profile. The fiscal sponsor can't submit your application for you. You as your own organization need to submit that. And so you kind of have to get all of your ducks in a row before you submit your application. Next. Oh, I'm going to pass it to Jerissa, who will talk about some of our key dates.
So as you guys know, our application release date was last week, May 15th. And I think one of the most important deadlines is our application deadline, which will be July 7th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Our system kind of just closes at 4 p.m. So I would aim to get it in a little bit earlier. Our grant start date is scheduled for October 2nd. And then we have an in-person gathering tentatively scheduled for January 31st and taking up from 9 to 1 p.m. And then our grant end date will be October 1st, 2024. Sorry, not stop sharing.
That's okay. You can actually stop sharing because actually the next slide just says we're kind of going to start question and answer. So while you guys are thinking of your questions that you might want to ask about this opportunity, one thing I really wanted to emphasize is we basically have within this funding opportunity for health and wellness two opportunities that are kind of smushed together, for lack of a better word. So the idea was there's these collaboration grants, and those are up to $50,000 on average, like between $30,000 and $50,000. But what we really heard in conversations with community is how beneficial it would be to also have opportunities for emerging ideas, programs, organizations. And that's really why the seed grant opportunity came to be, because what we were even noticing, this builds on the work of our change grants that happened in 2021, 2022. And what we were even noticing through that is like sometimes it was really hard for our smaller organizations to receive grant funds for it or be, say, competitive in those grant fund opportunities. So with this, we're actually creating a way that emerging projects, organizations, and programs can be competitive because they're competitive for the seed grant funding. So just wanted to kind of take that in. And then we did receive one question when through the pre-registration process. So I can start with, actually, let me pause there. Does anyone have questions they want to ask now? And then I'll answer the one that came in through the registration process. Let me open it up. So I think we have 4 people with us, or no, 3 people, Eliza, Anna, Lisa, and Jenny. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask?
Hi, aloha. I'm wondering if we apply as a nonprofit ourselves for the seed grant for one program, are we able to also apply for a collaborative, collaborative grant with another nonprofit?
And would a different nonprofit apply for the collaboration grant and then you would be part of it?
That's possible. It's kind of just we're just thinking about it, but yeah, if that's the way that it would need to go, then yes.
Yeah, I think because we, it's a great question, because I think in the collaboration grant, the way it's structured is like one organization could apply. So Roots and Rise couldn't apply for both the collaboration and the seed grant funding the same. But someone could be a fiscal sponsor for an organization that might want to do the seed grant funding, and then that would be the way that they could have two applications. So they could apply for the collaboration grant and also a seed grantee because they're fiscally sponsoring an organization. Does that make sense? I feel like it's maybe a little confusing, but we might also try and make sure we type out a response to that, because people might be wondering about can they participate in that way. It's a really good idea. I think your application would be strong in a collaboration grant if there's multiple organizations or groups, right? They don't necessarily have to be formally organized, but coming together to think about one application coming in.
Okay, that's helpful. Mahalo.
Aloha, I had a quick question about the collaboration grant. I'm not looking at the RFP right now, but will that grant accept your proposal if you do have HCF grants in the past or currently?
Yeah, so for this information session, we're really focusing in on the seed grant awards. We thought it would be helpful to kind of separate them out. We'll do one other information session about the collaboration grants on Thursday. So all of you are invited to that if you're also thinking about the collaboration grants, and we'll go over more detailed eligibility. To answer your question, for the collaboration grants, they will be sorry, say one more time. You wanted to know.
If your eligibility is allowed if you've received HCF grants in the past or have current grants.
Thank you for reminding me of that. So yes, you would. For collaboration grants, it's open to any applicant, whether you've received HCF funding in the past or not. For the seed grants, what we're trying to do is create a pool that's competitive for emerging programs and projects. So we are looking to fund organizations that haven't necessarily received funding from Hawaiʻi Community Foundation before. And then actually it's a great time for me to answer the question that came in through the pre-registration process for today, because it actually related to what you're asking. They had asked whether or not, oh, thanks for pulling it up so you can actually see the question. So if you actually received a grant that was awarded through a private foundation, one that's managed by Hawaiʻi Community Foundation, examples of that are like Atherton Foundation or Cook Foundation or Geist Foundation. So Baldwin, yes, there's some really great examples there. So if you received a grant from one of those foundations, you have not received funding from Hawaiʻi Community Foundation, and you can still apply. You can apply under the seed grant funding because they do operate as standalone, like as their own foundation structure. So hopefully that answers it as well. Any other questions?
I had a question. I work for a fairly new project called Project Thesis, and we put on these collaborative events for like community building that involves sound healing and yoga and meditation and whatnot. But I was just wondering, as for the use of the funds, are they for the seed funds? Is that going towards, can that go towards like general operating expenses, or does that have to go towards a specific program?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Annalisa. We're, as much as possible, we're trying to award general operating for these programs that would come in. And one kind of caveat to it is we have many different field of interest funds that we're drawing from at Hawaiʻi Community Foundation in order to make the awards. And some of those field of interest funds have purposes that would need to be met by the grant award. So it would just mean that like the funding gets used that matches the purpose of the funds that were given. So we're trying to make it as least restrictive as possible. We basically kind of want to know, what is your plan? What would you be up to in that 12-month period? And you might already have some of that information for project thesis. If you've done like, you know, some kind of annual planning or something like that, you could utilize that to inform the grant application.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Appreciate it.
Any other questions we could answer? This won't be your only chance to ask questions. So we'll have one other portion, which is Nanda helping walk through the grant portal, because it's new, fairly new. We're actually just, I think, hit the 1-year mark of using our new grants portal. And so we wanted to really let people know how to interact with the grants portal, and then we'll have another chance for Q&A. So I don't see anything else in chat. Why don't we go on, and then people can hold their questions till after Nanda gives an overview. Thanks, Nanda.
Thanks, Justina. Hi, everyone. I apologize. I thought my voice would be back to 100% now, and I just caught a very hanging on cold from my toddler. Teresa, could you go to the next slide? So I'm going to kind of walk you guys through the grants portal. So this is HCF's grant making system. So basically where we're getting all of the information from you guys. And I know especially for the seed grants, it's really important to understand how it works, because if you're working with the, sorry, yes, Teresa, thank you so much. So if you're working with a fiscal sponsor, it can be a little bit confusing, especially if you are a project versus a formal organization at this point. So we do want to kind of walk you through this. Teresa added to the chat a link for our resources page. So this is on our website, and this is a great place to go if you're not sure where to start. So I've highlighted kind of, sorry, everything's a little bit full of screenshots in this part of the presentation. But on the top screenshot, you can see where I've highlighted grants and scholarships. So that's on our website. If you click that, a little sub menu shows up, and you'll click how to apply for a grant. So this is going to show you all of the information you need to know about the grants portal, including our step-by-step user guide that you can use to apply, as well as walkthrough videos. So we have about 10 walkthrough videos. You'll see me, without having lost my voice a little bit, kind of walking you through different steps of how to use the system. And we do want to encourage you, sometimes if it's the first time using a system, you can get frustrated, totally normal, but go ahead and submit a support ticket. So it's linked on this page. It's also linked on the login screen of the grants portal, which we'll show you on the next slide. But we really do recommend, don't wait until you're frustrated. If you haven't heard, if you submit your registration and you have not heard, or you've not received an email from the system within basically 10 minutes, please submit a support ticket. Don't wait days. It should be there pretty quick. So if you haven't found it, something might be wrong, or it might be waiting for validation, and you can submit a support ticket. You'll get a response that says it's a 2-day wait time for a response. I usually get back to people within 24 hours or at least a business day. So the 2 days is if there's a lot of stuff coming in. So this is why we really recommend start your application early. There's 2 steps. There's your actual application, but there's also the organization profile. So your first step that you're going to do is the org profile. But basically here, this is the login screen that you're going to see. There's a lot of text that people don't usually read. I am absolutely the person who does that. I don't read things when I'm on login pages, but if you're confused or you're having trouble, just feel free to use any of these links. Everything is linked on this page. So the login screen is going to be a bit of a go-to place. Some basic tips: use Google Chrome or Firefox. The system, for whatever reason, was not built well for Edge, Internet Explorer, or Safari. And we also recommend that you're using a computer. If you're using a tablet, just be aware that if you have your system set up so that it opens links in new tabs, you might get kicked out of the system. But again, if that's happening to you and you can't remember why, submit a support request and I can absolutely help out with that. Joyce, you can go to the next page. So this is a really basic overview. There's a really detailed step-by-step breakdown in the applicant user guide. of how to apply for an application, what navigation you can use on the grants portal, all of that information you'll need. So this is like a very quick, let me give you resources and let me give you some like overarching tips. So your first thing is, yeah, I already said it, but I'll say it again and over. Don't wait until the last minute. There is a lag time if there's a lot of applications coming in. So even if you're not sure if you're going to apply for this grant, I actually recommend this week sometime or next week, go ahead and log in and make sure your account is set up. And then you can actually start your organization profile. In the past, we used to have people submitting all of these organization focused documents like financials, board lists, things like that with every single application. So this is to save you some time. Once a year, we're going to ask for you to come into the system and recertify your profile. That basically means just check, make sure you have the most updated financials, make sure your board list is updated, and then you hit certify and submit it again. And that basically means you're just providing us with your annual information. And you will get an email reminding you to do that. But this is something you can do without submitting an application. You can just go in and do it when you have some time. So I consistently say step one, because if you are submitting an application, but you haven't finished that, you will get an error that says you can't submit the application until the org profile is complete. So after that is done, you can begin your application by clicking the Open Funding Opportunities button. And that's what's highlighted here in yellow with the little megaphone icon. So once you click that button, you're going to see the screenshot below with all of the lists. So this is something that's great too. You might be interested in applying for this grant, but you might also be eligible for other grants, your organization. So this is constantly being updated. When a grant or funding opportunity opens, you're going to see it on this list. And you can get all the details you need by clicking the Download the Funding Opportunity Guidelines. It's nice because this hosts all of our grants. It also hosts Atherton grants or any of the private foundation grant runs that we do. So you can literally log in at any time and see what's open and what's being accepting applications. When you're ready to go ahead and apply, you can click that apply button and you begin the process of submitting an application. Jersa, you can go ahead to the next page. So registration, if you are not in the system yet, as a contact, you're going to need to register. In some cases, if your organization is new, you might not be in the system at all. So I encourage people who are not brand new to go ahead and try and click that forgot password or to organize. Sorry, actually, if you do not have an account in the system or you're not sure, but your organization has been around for a while, go ahead and try and register using other contact or organization contact. That's going to let you check. It'll basically, if you are in the system, it will send you a password reset link and email, or it might say your organization is not in the system. So if your organization is not in the system, you'll want to register following whichever setup works best for you. So if you are a 501c3, go ahead and click that 501c3 organization setup. So that's going to be a registration button. You can actually see it. It's the second blue screenshot right down there. If you are working with a fiscal sponsor, I should add another slide in here. I'm learning this. If you're registering under a fiscal sponsor, there are some instructions that you'll need to follow just because it's a pretty unique setup. So, and Alyssa, I know that you said that you're a project. So you're going to register as though you are an organization. So you will use, because you'll be sponsored by a fiscal sponsor, you'll register as other organization and fill out all that information for your project. And this also goes for if you are not a 501c3 charity or you are an organization who's recognized. Oh, perfect. So if you are a 501c3 and you're going to be using a fiscal sponsor, you'll register using the 501c3 charity. But if you're not a 501c3, use that other organization option. And the thing to note about fiscal sponsors is we require you as an organization to submit your org profile, we also require your fiscal sponsor to submit their org profile. So in the case that you are working with a fiscal sponsor and you know who they are, you can submit a support ticket at any time and I can let you know the status of their registration. So I can let you know if everything has been completed already, or if you need to talk to someone to get them updating that profile. Because if your fiscal sponsor is not registered and their organization profile isn't completed, you can't submit your application. The system will block you. So again, this is where don't wait for the last minute comes into play. Jerissa, you can go to the next page. So this is coming back to, it was mentioned earlier, but in the application itself, under program overview, you're going to be able to select a fiscal sponsor. You'll hit yes in the radio button, and then you'll type in the name. Please use the legal name and don't use any diacritical markings. This is the one field where we're pulling right off of an IRS database. So diacriticals are not accepted in that database. So just type it out. And if it's not showing up in the list, they might not have an account. So you'll want to submit a support ticket if you're having trouble with that field. And then in the supporting documents and certification section, you're going to want to post the resolution and agreement forms that you have with that fiscal sponsor. Jerissa, you can go to the next page. I think. So what I will do is, if you are a project versus an organization, I'm going to stick the web support email address in the chat for you. And you can just email me there and I'll give you some tips for setting up an organization profile, just because it's a little confusing because it's built for an organization versus a program or project who's kind of just a collaboration of people. So just go ahead and email me there or submit a support ticket. Either works and you'll get that same email address. Does anybody have any questions? If you come up with some, don't feel bad submitting a ticket. I will always answer.
Thanks, Nanda. We'll open it up to just any other questions that might have sparked either the part on the grants portal or the seed grant opportunity. Nanda, you had 3 really great tips. I wonder if you could, or not tips, kind of like your takeaways. And I wondered if you could share those with people, just like leaving this call, what should they remember?
Yes, start early. Start this week or next week just to see what the system is like. It's definitely my first one. Use Chrome or Firefox. Don't use a tablet or a phone. It gets challenging. If you get kicked out of the system, it's not super frequent. So don't wait until, or in any case, don't wait until you're frustrated. Just submit a support ticket. And then let the system go until you get a response back. Don't stress out about it.
I like that last one, Nanda, because I was kind of wishing, well, I wish there was something like that for everything, where if it, you don't have to wait till you're frustrated, you just get to submit a support ticket in life. But we do have one, at least for the grants portal. Well, thank you guys. I don't see anything coming in through chat, but we're such a small group that I would welcome anyone to just take themselves off mute, or if you want to use the gestures and raise your hand, you could do that too. But let us know if you have any additional questions we could answer for you. Also see we had a couple of new folks join. Welcome Lormona and Katie. So I don't know if you kind of came in halfway, partway through. So if you have any specific questions we could answer, we're happy to do that.
Is this the same sort of informational content you shared just last week?
It's slightly different in that last week we focused on the collaboration grants as part of the health and wellness grant opportunity. And then today we're really focusing in on the seed grant opportunity, which is for smaller $5,000 grants to really make it competitive for some of our emerging organizations or programs, like great ideas, but harder to maybe get that initial philanthropic funding behind it. So that's what this this meeting was focused on today.
Thank you. So sorry I came in late.
No problem. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Well, I had a question for you guys. If you're, unless there's other questions, is just if you don't mind sharing, like, how did you first find out about the seed grant opportunity? did you get email from us, or was it someone like an organization mentioned it to you?
Yeah, it was my mentor and the founder of Project Thesis. She emailed me about it and said it could be a good grant. I'm the only like paid part-time consultant. So it's just me doing the work. But yeah, I want to mahalo you folks for this work. I think it's necessary to put some money back into community efforts for holistic health and wellness. So I appreciate you folks.
Thanks, and thanks for sharing how you found out about it. I don't know, is anyone else willing to share? We're kind of curious. I think it's it's a little harder for us to like really figure out how to reach all the emerging programs and projects, as we know there's ones that we haven't heard of or don't know about. So we're also relying on others to kind of help us get the word out.
I found out through the grant, your HCF website, and I also found out through one of our collaboration organizations, the Hilo YMCA. We offer community garden work at their site and offer youth programming there. And then they were wanting some information from me for this grant as a collaboration. So I was like, oh, I should learn more about this if I'm going to collaborate with them.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. All right. I don't see any other questions coming through. I want to thank you guys for attending and spending lunchtime with us. Hopefully you still get a chance to eat some food, take care of yourself for a little bit before getting back to work. If you do have questions and something just occurs to you after we're done with this meeting, feel free to reach out and the best way is to send an email to Jerissa Lum. She's going to be collecting any questions we get so that we can answer them and make sure also that we can share them out if it might apply to other organizations so that all people get the information. But other than that, I think that you'll get like at least a few extra minutes back in your lunchtime. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you consider applying if you're a good match for this opportunity. Mahalo.